think we have a few minutes, and I remember Ryan brought up the idea of like, what are the alternatives to all
Yeah,
this?
we should talk about some more.
We began to talk about organic agriculture and the possibilities. You know, we can't actually produce the amount of food that we need, not to mention the fact, like I just read yesterday, here in the United States, we waste 40% of the food supply. It goes to landfills. Who knows exactly what happens to it all, but
buffets. And
yeah. Compared to the amount that we produce and the amount that is consumed, 40% of it is just lost. It's wasted.
Just thrown away in people's trash. People don't eat leftovers. I mean, in the past, people would eat leftovers. I know people now that they won't eat leftovers. It's like...
You know, we do a really smart thing in our home. Ryan and I are roommates, and we actually compost all of the food waste.
That's right.
I'm really proud. Now I feel really weird when I'm at a house and I'm throwing away my food. I'm like, oh, where's the compost bin?
I have a great story, if I can just share really quick.
Yeah.
Today I made a stew, and my husband and I are in the process of moving, and I used organic sweet potatoes. Well, I went out to put some things in the compost pile, and I noticed that we had a cabbage growing in our compost pile. And so I picked the leaves and put them in the stew.
Nice.
I think there's one thing we were talking about, how are we going to, you know, in terms of transitioning, certainly organic is going to be a huge component. But I think the issue of how to actually, you know, how are you going to actually grow the crops? I mean, we have tractors right now. I mean, these tractors use all this oil. We're going to have to produce electric tractors. And so this was mentioned in one of these articles. And I think we have to link that with solar somehow. And I don't see why we shouldn't start heavily investing. Our government needs to be heavily investing in the rapid development of solar tractors. And you could have these tractors with these massive solar panels going out. You know, you're in a field, you could just have this huge solar panel, and you could just set the tractor there and let it charge or whatever. And I mean, I think that needs to be a critical component of any kind of...
Yeah, I think it's something that really hasn't even hit our consciousness
That's
yet.
huge. Tractors, I think, is a
Uh-huh.
big one. Really.
Absolutely.
Also with technologies, we have to start getting incentives for younger people to start being farmers, because most of our farmers in the U.S., they're in their 50s and 60s.
Yes.
Like, who's going to take their place with everyone trying, you know, to do business or go off to the cities? Like, who's going to replace that population of people in the future?
Well, we've really destroyed, I mean, a lot of our small farms. I mean, we had small farms all across the U.S., and that was the lifeblood for small towns. And we've destroyed that with our industrial agriculture. I mean, now young people don't want to stay in the small towns. There's no opportunities there. I mean, you have to either be a huge, massive farmer that can get these massive subsidies from the government, or you need to go to the city and try to, you know, work at some fast food joint. I mean,
and I think that we have to continually do everything that we can to raise consciousness about the difference between farming and agribusiness. Because I think the public still thinks of them as one and the same, and they're very different things.
I mean,
and we all understand that, you know, but I think the more people that understand what's going on with agribusiness, I mean, they're making it more and more difficult for the average person to just get seeds, and seeds that can reproduce, you know, generation after generation. I mean, they're trying to own our food supply.
right, and
Or contaminate it.
they're totally dependent on corporate welfare. I mean, agribusiness is the component that requires billions of dollars in subsidies to, you know, to do what they do, and you know, we need to be encouraging small farms. Those are the healthy ones.
Yeah, well, interesting statistic that I read is if we're going to feed our world population, we're going to need about 100 million new farmers on this planet. I mean, that's
Well,
big.
That's
you know?
interesting you say that, because we're talking about massive unemployment, and in the future, I think we're going to be forced to do things we have to do, needs, and food's going to be the biggest need. I have a feeling a huge proportion of our public's going to be farmers in the future.
Yeah,
What we're talking about is culture change.
Yeah.
We're
It's gonna
talking
change.
about actually transforming our culture.
Right.
And becoming more thrifty and less consumerist.
Yeah, more
less
needs-based
materialistic.
and less,
Yes.
less desires-based. Was there something you were wanting to mention? We're about to run out of time.
Oh, I was just going to mention we are going to have a candlelight vigil by the Kaminsky statue, the Peace statue, on December the 11th from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. By the town center. And this is to commemorate how the global south is already being heavily impacted by climate change, mostly because of the culture and behaviors of the global north. So please join us.
And just in final note, I just want to thank all my panelists here today. They're wonderful and beautiful people. And I also want to thank my cameraman and my producer, Dave. And I also like to just mention when this show airs. This show is aired live right now, but it reruns every Sunday at 1 o'clock on CAT, and it also runs every Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m., and it also streams live on the internet. And I'm also posting all videos on YouTube, so you can watch them whenever you like. And I really appreciate your time and patience and watching what we have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Abel.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
we have a little more to talk about. Hey, we have 2 more minutes. Sorry. Let's see. I'm sure we can mention something else
I
here.
was just, I was going to mention real quick what people can do at home. If you're really concerned about these issues, start thinking about what you eat. Start understanding that what you eat has an impact on our climate, on our environment, on the people in the third world. If you're going to eat a hamburger, know that you are consuming a lot of resources. If you're going to eat meat, know that you're consuming a lot of resources.
Just try to cut back on meat.
Right, that's what I try to say.
Yeah, cut back on meat. Be aware of what you're doing.
I try to say that. You don't have to like go cold turkey and eat no meat. Just try to eat less, and certainly eat less.
Yeah.
I eat less mammals. Like try not to eat mammals, maybe at least once a week, or
And
or,
at least local too.
Yeah, try to eat
local
local.
eggs, local milk.
Yeah, I get local
Grow
eggs.
your own.
I get
as
local
much as
eggs at my.
possible. Now
at
we
my,
can have chickens in Fayetteville.
Yeah, I've got chickens.
Get
But
involved in a community garden. Start your own garden.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
start thinking about your food.
And
Yeah.
The more of us that do this, I mean, we can transform this.
How are your
situation.
chickens doing?
My chickens are good, and I'm waiting on eggs. But right now I get eggs at my hardware store down the street.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love my chickens.
And also, just one thing I just wanted to address was that we're anticipating climate change, based on models and whatnot. But we really need to start thinking about adapting our crops to these changes, imposing more stress on them just to get them prepared for different temperatures, different precipitation, different humidity levels and whatnot. So save your seeds, and in February we'll Conserving Arkansas's Agriculture Heritage, this organization will be hosting a seed swap in Fayetteville at the Fayetteville Public Library in February. So if you have any seeds that you're saving and whatnot and would like to trade with others who are interested in those same values as well, please come out and we'll have more information to give to you.
I guess I have one more thing to say. We have 1 more minute. I was just thinking, I was out at the Buffalo last weekend over the Thanksgiving break, and I saw the huge field of elk. And I was like, wow, I've never seen this many elk before. I thought it was awesome. I was thinking that we need to, if we had we used to have huge fields of elk in Buffalo instead of these huge fields of cattle. I mean, these are the natural animals adapted to this environment. Why don't we just let wild buffalo and elk, roam and grow on the grass instead of having to put all these inputs in, and we could just sustainably harvest those as a luxury. I was just reading that there's a place where buffalo are growing, and they're overpopulating. They're having to chemically control their population. So if we have these animals producing at this rate, why aren't we? This should be our meat source as a luxury. Obviously, we can't consume it like we're consuming meat now, but that's the future, I think. Elk and buffalo, not beef.
Alligators.
We're going to live more and more like the Native Americans.
Native Americans. Yeah.